Hello, everyone. So today we've got Simon Parks and Charlie Ward. Now, our descriptions are below for our channels. So on BitChute and YouTube, and also the Jasara Club. Drop your email in there as well so we can keep in touch if these platforms were ever to remove us. Gentlemen, how are you?
Simon?
Simon?
Well, I'm very well, thank you, and I'm delighted, obviously, Nicholas and Charlie. Charlie and I did a, a little chat with Robert David Steele, and I blinked my eyes and the show was over. And a lot of people wrote in and said, hey, that's no good. Well, you weren't on for very long. So I'm really delighted to have, I think, what would be a more prolonged chat.
Yeah, you've got 30 minutes today instead of 3 minutes with Robert David Steele. Yeah.
Crazy.
But we're living in an amazing time right now, and Simon and I are very much on the same page, and it's lovely that we can get a different perspective from the same page. I've been following Simon for quite a number of months now, and what it does from my perspective is I'm trying to put together a puzzle, and what Simon's work does is confirms the pieces. And that's all I'm trying to do is find out what the truth is. And we get called out all kinds of things today. I think Jack Kidd called a conspiracy theorist in the Daily Mail. That's not a bad thing. That's a badge of honor because that means you're challenging them. The only time they ever attack you is when you're over the target. But yeah, it's an amazing time, isn't it, Simon?
It is.
It is.
Yes. I was chatting to a chap from the Israeli embassy a little while ago, and their take on the situation is very interesting. As a sort of an insider outsider, can I put it like that? And they're worried at the way things are going, simply because they're feeling that there's a big mountain to climb. And you know what we saw, and I've been up like you guys most of the night. Last night, of course, finally Twitter completely took the president off. They've gone through from YouTube, they've gone through a lot of the stored videos, and they're only now archiving videos which show the president, as they think, in a bad light. I understand that Trump has got a deal with Newsmax and a couple of others, and he's doing a sort of a regular update. What have you heard, Charlie?
I've heard much the same, but I've also, from the people I've been talking to, they've said that this is played totally into his hands so that he can use the emergency broadcast facility without creating panic.
Yeah.
Because when the public see that the mainstream media are not delivering his messages and the social media are not putting out his messages, publishing his messages, then he has no other option. So they're taking his options away so people will understand without any moment of panic why he's doing this. But the mainstream media now we're seeing going after him they're desperate now because they know they've lost.
Yes,
they're in desperation.
We've had a lot of people from my organization, Connecting Consciousness, writing in saying they're absolutely disgusted at the way Trump's being treated. It doesn't matter whether you like him or not, he's the president. And for organizations that are private companies inside the United States to treat their president in this way, and I wrote to someone this morning very early and I said, basically the war is out in the open now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's very interesting that he's far too dangerous to go on Twitter, but he's not too dangerous to have the nuclear codes.
Sorry.
Now, just before we get started in the nitty-gritty parts of the law, everything that's happened yesterday with the censorship of mainstream media, and all the manipulation, propaganda, and the suspensions of the social media accounts, what do you say to the people, to the public out there who are now being completely called conspiracy theorists, brainwashed? What are the key points do they say to defend the situation? Simon, that goes to you.
I don't think we've got too long to wait. My understanding from a conversation yesterday was between 4 and 5 days, and then we should see something occurring. Not because the decision took that long, but the decision was worked up until on the 6th. The president and his team were up till 4 a.m. in Texas, and I can't remember that name of that base, but so what was decided then is it was going to take 4 or 5 days to play out. So what I would say to people is, you've waited this long, keep the faith, just remember that you're right, that you stand up for truth, and you know, there's nothing wrong in saying you believe in God. There's absolutely nothing wrong in that at all. But the reality is that just have faith, because truth will win in the end. That's it.
Charlie?
I totally agree with that. The time frame is very, very close, and in using the people that we're talking to's words, it's imminent. And one thing that they will not do is give you an accurate time, and there's a very simple reason for that. John F. Kennedy lost his life, and so did 3,500 people in the Twin Towers the last time they gave a time as to the transition from the old system to the new, and that's how they stopped it happening. They stopped the movement away from the Federal Reserve banking, the cabal, and they were far more embedded and far more dangerous than we ever gave them credit for, and they ran into far more areas. But this. The team behind the scenes had realized how bad they were. And as Simon and I both know, they were trying to track down one key element that we mentioned yesterday as to the funds, as to where the money came from. Because that one thing that we didn't mention yesterday is that these people's funds have been frozen. And this is why they wanted to find out who was behind them. And it's, you know, it's very easy to say, well, we've frozen Soros's funds, we've frozen the funds of the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bushes, and we've frozen all of their funds. But who's funding them? And you've taken out the Phoenician families and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Bilderbergs. They're all under control. So where's this money coming from? Mm-hmm. And then suddenly we found out, because they've been watching the satellite that's owned by the Italians, which is Leonardo, which we mentioned yesterday, after Leonardo da Vinci. It went through that fully encrypted. They thought they were safe. So they were able to watch in real time the transfer of the funds from the Vatican and the changing of the votes on the Dominion server. So they put all the pieces of the puzzle together. The pure icing on the cake was when they managed to get the laptops from Congress. That was a pure bonus.
What do you guys think that the information they have on the laptops, because there was a lot of laptops on the table, by the way, we saw about 20, 25, something like that. Simon's laughing. What do you suspect, Simon, that we could be seeing in the next few days from these laptops?
I don't think the public will be seeing too much in the next few days. I think something will come out later. Look, what happens is, let's just refer to this as the central control, the DS. These people provide all of their agents with the same laptop. It all contains similar material. However, each one is code to that individual operator, and that operator has, you know, rights and responsibilities within it. So when you take a number of laptops, some things will be standard within all of them. I'm not talking about Microsoft or the operating systems. I'm talking about their special methods of operating. But what will be captured is each person has a list of contacts. Each person has a list of instructions that they're to follow and report back. So by capturing a number of laptops, as Charlie said quite rightly, this you have so many puzzle pieces that you're kept very busy chasing people back. Now, what's incredible is, I will just say this, that I think Charlie's probably a bit more sanguine than I am, but when 9/11 occurred, the good guys realized they couldn't play the same game. The old cowboy with the white hat on him was not going to work. And so they've learned to, I think the good guys have always outthought the bad guys, but now they've been prepared to be a bit more physical. And what's amazing is the stupidity or the crass confidence of people like Pelosi to leave their own laptop, to leave their material about. But that's because the military are good at doing a diversion. You know, the good guys I'm nearly finished. The good guys refer to, I think I'm with Robert David Steele. I've got to speak really fast because he's going to tell me to stop.
You can relax.
The good guys have a military background and a military understanding and the way they operate on that. And they referred to what happened at the Capitol building as a siege.
Yeah.
That was their term. So whilst to the general public, it looks like everything's lost and it's all gone wrong, actually it hasn't. The good guys have learnt lessons the hard way and have put it into place.
I love that. Now, Charlie, Simon speaks about Nancy Pelosi, and I'm sure both of you have heard some rumors circulating around that she could even might be a white hat, which completely shocked me, and I very highly doubt it. What are your thoughts about that, Charlie?
The one thing that I've learned on this journey is to sit back and be patient and watch, rather than to point out who's good and who's bad. We can get wrapped up in identity politics. This is not about that. This is a war between God and Satan. And once you get that into your mind, the players are irrelevant. And I've often said that people go into the identity politics of, I don't like Trump because he's got orange hair, and I don't like this. And this is what the mainstream media will do, is when you realize what this battle is about, this is between God and Satan. This is the Great Awakening. This is moving from darkness into light. And we get distracted by these sort of things as to who's good, who's bad. Yes, it becomes very, very clear who's on God's side rather than who's on Trump's side. You get far more clarity when you look for who's on God's side. And that's very easy in the way that they handle themselves and the way they go about it. You can see with people, those that are on the satanic side. And once you move away from the third dimension into the fifth dimension and above, you get complete clarity. Because of what's happened over the last few days, people have slipped from the fifth back into the third because they've got worried. This happens. It's human nature. We're human beings. We can slip very, very easily. And I've learned that I've slipped a couple of times when I've had a gin and tonic. The next day, I feel I've slipped far too easily back into normal, what I regarded as normality. And I need to give myself a bit of a slap and say, look, put yourself together and wake up to truth and wake up to. And I grew up thinking that God was up in the skies. That's what I grew up thinking. And as you go, when you start studying, you find that it's inside you, and you need to look inside yourself. And I've said this whole journey, we all need guidance on resetting our moral compass, the difference between right and wrong. Simon and I come from a certain era where wicked used to mean bad. In your generation, for some reason, it means good. All this sort of thing, the transition of language between trying to make something look the opposite or make the opposite look right. These are all things that they've contaminated our thought process.
And they do it in music, and that's, for an example, Michael Jackson had a bad album, and Thriller and Dangerous, you know. So guys, Simon Parks, this one's for you. We have now seen what's happened to with the state legislators. They've all failed, and Trump is exhausting every single legal option, because if he doesn't, people are going to turn around and say, well, he didn't do this, well, he didn't do that, and he won. See, he didn't do this, he didn't follow the process. Now, where are we now? What is there another legal process that Trump has yet to follow before the whole thing collapses and the truth comes out?
Well, the answer to that is no. But before I do a bit more of that, I must just follow on with Charlie there. The people who I chat to in America, I'm always asking, if you can't give me a gun, give me a big stick. And they say to me, and they're referring to Charlie, what is it with you Brits? It's very interesting. But I want to address what Charlie's put forward there. Look, the earth is a beautiful place, but lower fourth dimensional energy was crafted by satanic magicians a very long time ago and is put around the earth, and that is the evil. You see, the words pedophilia, Satanism doesn't exist in the fifth dimension. It doesn't exist higher up. It's only in the lower fourth, which was brought to this planet. This planet was beautiful and was corrupted by magicians or evil people who could use this dark energy to be able to open a new way of life on this earth, which allowed them to exist and allowed them to vampire off this planet and the people on it. So let me just say that, and that's because Charlie does have the knowledge, and I need to show the audience that Charlie and I totally agree on that.
Yeah.
I think that when you're a good person, you're honor bound for yourself and for the public to try every legitimate way possible, so that if push comes to shove, you can say, I truly tried everything before I had to hit the button. And I think that everything's been tried. The public now want an executive order. That's the point. It wasn't 75 million that voted for Trump, it was 80 million. The 80 million that voted for Trump now are sick and tired of the legal process. They don't want to hear anything more. All they want is the president to say, I have enacted an executive order. So the president, Mr. POTUS, needs to understand that the people are ready for it. They're ready for that. And doing anything more is just a waste of time. That's my view. That's why that's why people say to me, Simon, what is it with you? And I'm saying, we got to do this now. I really do think the time has come. I don't know, maybe Charlie wants some more dancing, but I don't think he does.
Go on, Charlie.
Well, no, I spoke to Nick earlier about this because this is something that will be interesting, because I've listened to everything that's been said by Donald Trump and by Sidney Powell and by General Flynn and by Lynn Woods. And it's very interesting about the wording used about the inauguration. And the question I have is, we now know that the corporation of the United States of America has been closed down. So from a legal standpoint, it would be illegal to inaugurate a president to an illegal organization because it doesn't exist anymore. So I think we're transitioning from the old system to the new. And there will be an inauguration, but probably not of a president, because he also said, I will be the last president of the United States. And also, and I said this to Nick earlier, which this whole journey has been described as quantum chess, 5-dimensional chess. Anybody who understands the game of chess knows that you take the queen out first. That was done a couple of years ago, for those who know. So the question I have for you, Simon, if this is 5-dimensional chess, maybe that he won't be inaugurated as a president, maybe he'll be inaugurated as a king.
Right. It's very interesting because the good guys do have access to a quantum machine, and that has played a part with Q and with other things as well. I'm not a student of American history, but I know that sometime after 1776, before the full Constitution and everything was written, there was a separate sort of government. And I know the people I've been speaking to have even been talking about a new America without places like California, New York, and then let's see how they get on without us, was the quote I was given. I think that the Republican Party is so corrupt, the Democrat Party is so corrupt, you cannot now have a system like that anymore. You've got to literally, and I've said this, you've got to recruit new people whose first loyalty is to the Republic, not to a political party. Now, you can't say we're creating the Trump party, because you mustn't have the ideology of one man. But what you can do is create a party, if that's the political way we go down, but something that is representative of a new beginning. So perhaps an inauguration of a new beginning, because he's got 80 million people behind him. And I think that there has to be some form of 3D physical process to lock this in, because when you're dealing with world leaders and world banks and all the rest of it, you do need that authority, but not on the same background. Maybe he'll put his hand on a Bible, but I'm not sure what else will happen. So I totally agree with you, Charlie. This is the beginning of the beginning.
Because right at the start of my journey, I mentioned about Nasara and Jassara and the Nasara government.
Yep.
What I do know from my intel right at the start of this is that every country and territory in the world signed up to Nasara and Jassara back in April or May of this, or before then. I found out in April of this year.
Right.
So that would fit very, very well to that. But what they would call it, I don't know. I've heard, obviously it was written as Nasara in 1962. And it's been changed many, many times, the detail to match the times. It's very well documented online. People, and I don't like reading it out so much because people have a million questions. And I just say, do your own research into Nasara and Jassara and then form your own judgment based on what you read. A lot of people switch off at the debt forgiveness because that's not possible, that's not possible, because they're so enslaved to the world of debt.
Yes.
So their mind is not open to change at this moment. So hopefully this transition of 2020 will...
Charlie, I I always said that nobody was ever going to be standing on a street corner handing out $20,000 to everybody. That wasn't going to happen. That was the wrong concept. It was a new age crazy dream. But projects or organizations that are non-politicized, that have held the line, they will be supported. And the way that big businesses and individuals control it, that's going to change.
Yeah.
But it does require Mr. Trump to have some position of authority. That's really
certainly
connected.
Certainly.
So when do you think that this, you know, the new president, for an example, because there will be a new president for the new system, or a king, if you like, because now we've established that now the inauguration would be illegal because of the Banking Act 1871 was ended on the 5th of June 2019. So when would that start exactly? Because I'm hearing the 4th of March.
Well, I think I always thought Easter myself. I was given Easter because of the religious connection, and because it was a new beginning. I don't know, Charlie, what do you think?
I'm not worried about the exact date. I just know that I know the destination. I'm just enjoying the journey and watching it happen. Because I've found a piece that I never had before, and when you know things are on the right track, it's a bit like last night when I took Justin to gymnastics and I had to drive home at half the pace because it was pouring with rain and very windy, and that's a bit like what we've gone through. I knew where my home was, and I just knew I had to drop my speed and just get there safely. I'm just worried about getting there safely and taking those people with us that understand the time and the date of it. Is just what's programmed into our mind that we must know now, we must know now. Just sit back and enjoy it, and just be, because fear will kill you.
Yeah.
And there's too many people who've lost the faith because you said it was going to happen here.
Oh.
And it's not about that. It's about knowing that we're on the right path and enjoying the journey and watching things being dismantled, watching evil being dismantled, watching good shine through, and all this mentality, is it going to be this week or next week? This is all the way that we've been programmed, rather than just...
Charlie, I have to say, I mean, I absolutely, totally agree. And how fear plays out, you know, I've had people in my organization write in to resign, blaming me personally for the death of the supposed death of these people in the Capitol building. My fault. And this is a time of choice. People, whether they like it or not, are being forced to make a choice, and it's terribly exciting to watch, to see how humanity is coping with that. And the group we've got left, the people who are true, they're the people we can do something with.
Totally. And the woman that was supposed to have been shot in the in the
neck.
Sorry, in the neck.
Shot in the neck. Yeah,
shot in the neck. She was tweeting yesterday. So, is she tweeting from heaven or is she tweeting from America?
Well, she's 14 years in the United States Air Force.
Yes.
So you saying that person that was an actor and it didn't happen? You know, it was just
I can't comment on that one.
right.
We
We won't
can't comment on that. You make your own mind up.
Right. So there's a
If she's
okay.
tweeting the next day after she died,
Yeah.
you either believe in reincarnation or something else happened.
I do
Absolutely.
believe in reincarnation, Charlie.
Yes, I do too.
So what happens now if people are worried that we may see, you know, Joe Biden become inaugurated? We don't have to worry. We know that the inauguration is now illegal, it's ineffective because that was part of the old system, and now we have a new system. Is that correct? The inauguration is not valid anymore.
In a nutshell, yeah. We were in a period of transition. So the old idea of an inauguration won't happen in the format that you would, because it's not legal. And one thing you can guarantee with Donald Trump, this has become so clear that everything he's done is
Mm.
by the book and by the law. Everything, bar none.
Hmm.
Whereas everything they've done behind the scenes has been illegal. So if they tried to do an inauguration, it would be illegal if they tried, just from a point of view of law. And this is where it's very important that we understand God's law and stop making up our own laws. What's happened in most countries around the world, man has made up his own laws, and that's not right. God's laws are very, very simple. I don't hurt you, you don't hurt me. I don't steal from you, you don't steal from me, and I don't kill you, you don't kill me. It's very simple, and that's what we
Absolutely.
need to stick to.
He's had to do everything by the book, because if he did not do it by the book, they would have got him out. And the only way you get the bad guys out is you have to do everything by the book, and very, very well by the book.
And
Parts which you
I think, Nicholas, it's also that if you can become like them, and if you become like them, then what's the difference? So I think it's about educating by example. It's actually always trying, as Charlie said, there are a number of bad people who I actually feel very sorry for, because they're actually victims. They've been blackmailed through, you could call it stupidity. You know, at the end of the day, for me, there's just a small number of people that need to pay the price. The rest have got to go through some sort of program. When Nazi Germany fell in 1945, there was a denazification program. I would actually love to see a program that actually re-educated people and actually showed them what was being done and how it was being done. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you, like they did in Auschwitz, they took local people and marched them through Auschwitz to traumatize and shock them. But what I am saying is that when mainstream media comes down, which it will, that people are, I can't say subjected to, but are given the opportunity to see the truth. And I think that, and this is really up Charlie Street, when the banking system operates on a much more humanitarian basis, then I think that the greed and the rush and the power that goes with that will reduce, and I think that society will be the better for it.
100%. I couldn't agree more with that. The
Mhm.
world has been driven by greed so much, and it's just downright horrible, and it's unnecessary. We just see when you. I think probably the biggest, worst example of greed is the man who created the computer, Gates, and he made a lot of money out of the computer, which was very, very good. It was helpful to us all. But then he realized, hang on, how can I make more money? And he created a virus in his computer so that he could make some money. So that he created the antivirus, so that you
Absolutely.
had to buy the antivirus to stop the virus that he created. And of course, once he made it, that took him from a millionaire to a billionaire. And then he thought, right, how can I become a trillionaire? I know. I'll do the same theory with human beings. I'll create a virus because they're scared of a virus. And I've mentioned it thousands of times. You can't transmit a virus. Biologically impossible. You can transfer germs, but not a virus. So he's done it with the mentality that we're all computer literate. So we understand, oh, virus, that's going to goes right through my whole computer. That doesn't happen in real life with us. And so the minute they were pumping out that this virus was transmitting between people, I went, no, biologically, that's not possible. Germs can be transmitted, but not a virus. So that theory's come up by a computer geek to scare us. So you start to understand the evil of of money. He became obsessed with money, obsessed with power, and then I don't know if you're aware of this, Simon. I did some research on his charities. So he'll give money to his charity. His charity will give it to another of his charity. It goes in a circle of 5. So he gets all the publicity as I'm giving to all these charities, but it comes back to him again. And you just go, you couldn't even make it up.
No, no.
But this is how evil the world we live in is. To get the gratification from the media and from the world, he
Yep.
sends the money in a full circle, so he gets 5 times the publicity, and it comes back to him again.
Well, even before that, Mr. Ford, who made the Ford motor car, he did a car, and you know, I've been told by people who used to work there that he wasn't selling as many cars after the initial, you know, burst of it. So he sent his chief engineer around. This must be in the 20s or the 30s. Chief engineer to all the breakers yards, all the scrap yards, to find out what of this car, what could be done. And I think they've thinned some working part by 1/8 of an inch, and now the cars broke down within 8 to 10 years. And so when you introduce money, you introduce the goal as opposed to anything else. So education, hospitals, it's not about educating people, it's not about helping people, it's about making money. If you can remove that direct connection between the concept of creating and holding wealth, and then you can divorce that from educating people or looking after people, this planet will be as it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that will, I don't know, we've got to draw the poison out, and that's what is happening now. This is what
100.
we're always meant to go through this. And I'll just finish off this bit by saying we are so privileged to be here at this time. Or could have been here 100 years ago, could be here in 100 years time, but to be here now to observe this is the most wonderful thing, because I can tell you that in the multiverse there is a massive interest in this planet at the moment. We are going through a rejuvenation and a birth, and it's really exciting. And those people who just read the mainstream newspapers or the television, they've got their head down, they've got their mask on their face, and they are living in total abject fear. And that's not what humanity is supposed to live like that.
No.
I understand, Parks, that our DNA is going to be upgraded into this 5D that, you know, our Mother Earth is turning into. And when we increase our consciousness, you know, we'll be vibrating higher, which means that evil won't be, you know, won't be able to take it. Is that your line of thought as well?
My line of thought, yeah. It's not unusual. Planets do evolve. People do evolve. It's a natural progression. There is always something to strive for if you can get it together. Again, it was misunderstood. At least people in the mainstream science know that there is a 4th dimension. They've proved that now with the Hadron Collider. But we do not have to go into the 4th dimension to do our time, because we are fighting the 4th dimension now. So when humanity evolves, we'll jump straight into the 5th dimension, the lower part of the 5th. We can't expect too much, but we will break into the 5th, which will mean that rapists, muggers, evil people are going to struggle in that new environment. And I think that there will be, God help me for talking about Charles Darwin, but there will be a natural selection, if you like, where people themselves will choose. Nothing will be forced on them. They will choose what life they want and how they want to live it. And it's about looking at 2 rooms. Do you want that one or do you want that one? So we are on the verge of a massive change in our lifetimes.
I totally agree with that. I was unaware of this when it happened, but when I was 23 years old and I left the Plymouth Brethren religion that I was born and brought up in, I was brainwashed all my life, and that was in the 3rd dimension. When I came out of there for the next 2.5 years, I was in the 4th dimension, where I couldn't find my feet. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was true. I didn't know what was honest. And that's what people will go through. And you'll have to, this is where resetting your moral compass becomes massively important, to try and establish the truth. And I've said it many times: if you believe in God, ask him. If you believe in Allah, ask him. If you don't believe in anybody, ask your mum or your grandma. They'll help you set your moral compass so you understand what truth is. Not what the mainstream media tells you, not what I tell you. Find out your own truth. And that's the fourth dimension. When you're transitioning from what you perceived as, well, I call it living in a box. Um, you can't see the wood for the trees. Your box is probably your television. But as you transition out and you find out that everything you've been told is not what you thought it was, you'll go through periods of anger, frustration, um, as you learn that what you were taught was not correct. And the people you trusted were in the film business and the music world were not what you thought they were. And it's not easy. It's not easy by any sense. But I went through this from the age of 23 to 25 years old, and it was not easy. I was completely lost as a person. And it took me a further 7 or 8 years to really find my feet and find out exactly what was true and what was not true. It doesn't happen overnight, and it will fall on people like Simon and myself and Nicholas' shoulders to guide people through this. It's not easy, a difficult phase from unlearning. I've said it a few times recently. It's dead easy to con people, dead easy. It's far harder to convince them they've been conned. And that's what we're going to have to go through. And that's the fourth dimension, is when you start to realize that everything you've been told is not what you think it is, and you start to unravel and start to learn. And you can't force people, because they'll go back into the third dimension.
Guys, the other thing a lot of people are curious about as well, that I want to know, is with all this censorship, just want to go back a little bit to what's going on now. Now, with all this censorship that's going on, is it, too far-fetched to assume that Trump will be doing the broadcasting emergency messages on devices, and will it be just in the US? Parks.
I think I'll let Charlie talk about
Charlie.
that one, but I just wanted to say that, those of us who've got to this position didn't do it because we had a silver spoon in our mouths. We got here because we had to crawl and struggle. And when I went public 10 years ago with my own experiences, and I was absolutely hammered by people like the BBC, who were absolutely determined to make me out some sort of crazy nut. And then the game changer for me was in 2013, when the Ministry of Defence invited me to one of their space radar, and I got a 3-hour tour of the radar base. And I remember a BBC reporter phoning me at home saying, "I don't understand this. I've been told by my producer to really go for you, but you've just been given a 3-hour tour around one of the most secret bases on Britain. I can't handle this." And what that did, it just stopped all that evil attack overnight, because the system couldn't cope. And so there are good guys and bad guys everywhere, but we have to go through our own personal journey. And if we hold it together and survive, then we will come out stronger. And I think that most of humanity will do that. So I just wanted to say that, because it's, I want the audience to understand that people like Charlie and I didn't just wake up yesterday and say, "What shall we do today? Oh, I know, I'll do this." We fought hellishly hard to get to this position, and we survived. And I think a lot of people think it's just an easy life, and it's not.
It's not been an easy life, and I've certainly lost a lot of people that I thought were friends. But I've also gained an awful lot of people that I had never knew before. So I'm grateful for that. But you're absolutely right. It's been a journey that I look back on now with complete gratitude for some of the most difficult things I've been through, because it stood me in good stead for today. And I've enjoyed that. And it comes with a sense of responsibility now that a lot of people are following Simon and I, and Nicholas as well. But I'll have to say this: thank you, Simon, because our video we did the other day, even though it was only 3 minutes each, has had 1.3 million views in the first 24 hours. For me, it was a record. I don't know about you, but it blew me away at the numbers. It was an incredible amount amount of people that are craving for the truth.
Yes, yes, and it was a record for me as well. But the overriding response from my membership at Connecting Consciousness was, why was it so short? And I had to explain, look, I wasn't the host.
Exactly.
Now, I would just say about the emergency broadcast, because I got that this morning at 3 or 4 a.m. British time, that if Max News and some of the others don't feel confident in carrying the president's message,
Right.
then the emergency broadcast is an option available. So, Nicholas, that's the answer.
Right. Excellent.
That's what I
So,
understand. And it goes very much to what you said earlier, Nicholas, about the legal point of view. Donald Trump has exhausted every legal option open to him. We know that as a fact. He's now going to make sure that he's checked every news channel to make sure to see if there's anyone that's prepared to deliver his message or not. If not, Simon's absolutely spot on right. He has the emergency broadcast at his disposal, but if there's a channel out there that is prepared to go out and say, fine, we're going to put the truth out, then he will utilize that.
so I understand there's so many different directions we can go to depending on what happens. So that we might not even have the emergency broadcast if we get the right information from Newsmax and they choose to do that. So from now until the 20th or the 21st, what do you guys expect to see and unfold? Linwood said about arrests. Do you think that's something that we're going to see in the public? Charlie?
From my point of view, the arrests have already happened. It's whether they become public knowledge or not, at what stage they become public knowledge. I can't tell you a lot of detail because I'm under an NDA as to what I can and can't say, but I can assure you that a lot of the arrests have already happened. And at the right time, they will release that information. I can also tell you that they have a number of confessions that they have video recorded as well, and that will also carry an awful lot of weight at the right time. But this is all of this. We're in a war. This is the Third World War. This is all about strategy and all about timing. And I can assure you, the timing doesn't come down to you or me or to Simon. It comes down to Donald Trump and his team, and that their timing so far has been spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would obviously go with that. Now, I haven't moved gold around the planet, so I don't have an NDA. What I've got is someone saying, "Don't say anything." That's what I get. Don't say anything. You're not authorized to release this. But what I will say is that the president is a very clever man. He's not a fool. He's an incredibly clever man. He's actually a very nice man, actually. And when he stands at the podium and he looks around like this and he says, "Where's Hillary? Where's Hillary? Where's this person? Where's that person?" You should try and read into that as much as you can. When the 6th and the Capitol building played out, there were certain people that realized that they thought they had both ends of the rope and they didn't. And that's why Pelosi went to the general and said, "We think that Trump's unstable. Can you take the nuclear codes away from him?" And the general replied that basically that he's the commander in chief and that it wouldn't be right to do that. So she didn't get anywhere with that one. But here's the point I wanted just to tell you, Nicholas. I mean, Charlie will know this, but China is becoming really concerned that the game isn't going their way. And what they wanted, that this is why this has happened, and I don't think you'll find this on any other alternative site on the planet. So, you heard it from Charlie and me first, was that China wanted the nuclear codes taken away from Trump so that China could attack Taiwan. Because the deal is that Biden has given Taiwan, it's not his right to do that, but he's given Taiwan to China. And as long as Trump has the nuclear codes and the ultimate weapon, China won't do it. So there's a deal here to allow China to militarily invade Taiwan with no comeback from the US. And there's another deal that's been agreed, which is to allow Iran to make the nuclear weapon. And the problem for Biden is that Israel has said, if you do that, we will declare war on Iran. So This is the game that's being balanced at the moment, and it's why the United States military will never let Biden be POTUS. They can't, because it actually is the Third World War. That's why it can't allow to happen. Over to you, Charlie.
No, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things I've been told not to talk about was Taiwan.
Oh, I was told I could.
Okay, that's good. This is why we can have all the pieces of the puzzle together, because I'd known that for some time about Taiwan, that Taiwan had been that China had been given consent by Biden's team to take over Taiwan. I've also heard that about a number of other countries that Iran wanted to take control of, and it all they had Biden completely wrapped around their finger, and this is, you're absolutely bang on right. And this, look, the war is already won. I remember going back in, I think it was May, when I was talking to one of the ambassadors, and he said, "Charlie, we're past the critical point now." And I went, "Okay, what does that mean?" It turned out they'd taken down the Phoenician families that were the people that were behind the scenes funding everything, controlling everything. Once they'd taken down, Donald Trump actually did make a mention that they'd taken the head off the beast, and nobody had any idea what he meant. But that's what he was referring to. There was three critical points that I've mentioned a number of times in my video. Taking out the Phoenician families and the Vatican right at the start was critical. The second part was to do with Washington, D.C. and the Federal Reserve, backing the Federal Reserve into the Treasury, and getting Judy Shelton lined up ready to take over the gold standard for that. And the third part was emptying Buckingham Palace and the City of London and the control of the financial. So the three parts were taken very early on. And all this, it's amazing in England how they still get away with all this story. Oh no, they're redecorating. Have you ever been past Buckingham Palace?
It's covered up.
Redecorate wing by wing by wing. She'd never need to move anywhere. But people buy the theory. Complete lies.
Yeah.
And she was taken out she was told to leave there at the beginning of this year or last year, and she left.
But Charlie, she came to an arrangement with Trump, didn't she? She came to an agreement.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
What was the agreement? Sorry, go on, Charlie. Sorry.
She came to an arrangement that it was very, very simple, really. That if she was cooperative with Trump, she would be allowed to leave a legacy, and if she wasn't, she wouldn't.
Yeah, because what Charlie, that's exact. Charlie's always bang on here, is that the royal family in Britain are very, very keen about their history.
Correct.
How is the family viewed? How is it understood? And if things are done the right way, then the public will always have this rose-tinted glasses view. And I think that's what you're saying, Charlie, isn't it?
It's very much what I'm saying, but also you have to remember that Trump's human, and his mummy adored the Queen.
Yes.
So he went in there himself with a positive agenda to try and allow them to leave the correct legacy. But he needed cooperation, and he got cooperation.
The first time in history.
I'll leave it at that from that point. Sorry?
And then the first time in history, a United States president walked in front of Her Majesty the Queen.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that signified so much. Yeah.
What did you think of the deepfake Channel 4 documentary that they made about the Queen?
That was actually very, very important. I think Simon would understand this, because if you didn't watch that and you watched the main Queen's speech, you go, whoa, that's not right. The Queen's speech actually was in CGI. I assume, rather than clone or body double, don't know. I assume it was CGI. It looked CGI to me. But because Channel 4 did the fake one, people didn't question the
real one.
Exactly, because their mind had been programmed to the nutty one. Oh, now we've got the real one. So they didn't question it. That's how programming works. And I often say to people, just very simple programming. If you're sat at the table now, and under the table you move your foot in a right circle, in clockwise, and then draw a number 6, the foot changes direction without, your mind can't do anything about it. And that's simple programming that they're very used to. And that's just a little example with a bit of fun, so that you understand programming.
Yeah, and I think a lot easier to control in a studio. I've seen a person give a talk at a lectern stage and then walk up out the back, and that person wasn't real at all. And sometimes if you see these creations side on, they're as thin as a piece of paper, but when you see them front on, they're very substantial. But if you're doing it in a studio, then you've got everything, and Charlie's right. But you know, the Queen is a very powerful person, and it's much more advantageous to have that person on board assisting you, because she can open so many doors, and the president actually has, I believe, quite a good relationship with Her Majesty.
Yeah, he certainly does. And the other thing that has been collapsed is the Commonwealth. And she will have wanted that managed in an
Yes.
acceptable fashion. And we've seen the first detachment, which was Barbados, and you'll see them detach themselves for their own reasons to make it look right for the public to see. And it'll be made to play out the correct way. So, yeah, no, I understand the same as you, Simon. He has a very good working relationship with her, but I think she understands the game is up.
So where do you think she? Sorry, you were going to say something, Parks. I saw you.
Yeah, you just call me Simon.
Yeah.
She she and Trump never want to go to the situation of the Mad King George. So the United States does not need a Mad King George here in Britain. It needs somebody who is prepared to be flexible and understand that it's time to let go, and to let this fledgling country actually do what it's supposed to do. And I don't want to take this too far in this direction, but I would say to you that, to my knowledge, there are very few countries that were created by God to actually do something a bit special. Um, we could talk about the Holy Land, but from America's point of view, there's something special about America. There's something to do with God's interest in that country. And for 10 years, I've been saying that Britain was the land of the spiritual, the not the magic in the bad sense of the word, but the way it is here. But America was where the fight was always going to be fought physically. Now, 10 years ago, I said that, and here we are, and it is physically playing out. Now, what's important is what Boris Johnson and some of these crazy people around him, how are they going to position themselves? Because if they're not careful, they have lost Europe, quite rightly, in my point of view, but they've lost Europe. They don't want to lose America. They can't afford to do that. Charlie, what's your take on Britain at the moment?
I think you've absolutely nailed it. If I just wind back to answer your question, to wind back to when I was flying in from Africa 6 years ago with one of the ambassadors, they told me that they were going to shut down the world's economy for a global financial reset. 2 years ago, they said, right, we've got Trump in place now, so we're nearly ready to go. And then I was told now they had the UK out of the EU and Boris in power. So that, when I look back, has a relevance.
Sure.
That the United Kingdom was an integral part of this whole transition.
Yeah.
And the relationship between America, forget the trade agreements, I'm talking about a relationship between America and the United Kingdom, was obviously very, very important. There was another thing that was, the words were used a lot, the Nazi states of Europe. And that now has a relevance that it didn't have that much of a relevance apart from a very nice soundbite at the start. It now has a lot of relevance that the United Kingdom, it was very important to America that we were detached from Europe when we went through this transition. There is a respect and a connection between the two that doesn't exist between America and Europe. It does exist between the United Kingdom and America.
Yeah, I think so. The other countries that are quite connected, Australia, the military in Australia are very connected to the military of the US.
Yeah.
But I think that if people have got the guts and the strength of determination, then Britain and America can actually create a new renaissance. And rather than look back at the two countries who were at war or fighting, we really should be setting the standard for the world. That's what I think. I think Britain and America, if together, are unstoppable. That's my view.
I agree. I agree.
I think you're spot on right. I think that we have a very, very good understanding of each other. We have a good relationship with each other. And I think then if you have that as the hub of the wheel, and you bring in Australia,
Yeah,
New Zealand,
yeah,
South Africa,
yeah,
as the foundations, and then you have so much in the the Far East and the Middle East that will come into line with that.
yes,
Something that was very interesting that made me smile a few years ago, but now I think is very, very accurate. Um, I was talking to one of the sheikhs who said to me, Charlie, it'll happen in the next 5 years. The Christians and the Muslims coming together, because he said we're very, very similar anyway. And I thought it was a joke a few years ago, but I'm starting to see that happening. That the the honesty and integrity of both sides. There's good and bad in both sides, without a shadow of a doubt. But the fundamentals, I can see them coming together. That now that I couldn't see then, I was like, really? Now I'm starting to see that we're all on the same page. And I've said the whole way through this that religion is very divisive, whereas spirituality brings people together. We'll move away from the religious side of the world,
Mm.
which has been contaminated badly, to the spiritual side of the world, which is very enlightening.
and why the other side was so intent on these actors pulling machetes and knives in London and elsewhere and trying to create that. And I mean, if you look on the Dome on the Rock, where you've got two different religious organizations sharing the same space, that actually is a marker for the future.
Yeah.
And I think that this is about detaching people from norms, from a paradigm, from rules and regulations, and it does actually mean rewriting everything on this planet, and it can't be done overnight. But and I share this when I talk to my people and connecting consciousness. I just want to share it with your audience, Nick, and yours, Charlie,
Sure.
as it's fundamental, and I really want to. It's true. A number of years ago, I lived in the northeast of England, and I remember passing an old-fashioned sweet shop, which of course would be called a candy store in the US, and about a 3-year-old child came out screaming and having a tantrum, stamping her foot, shouting. And as I was a bit further away, I thought she was shouting, "Mummy, mummy, mummy," meaning, "Where's my mummy? I want my mummy to come and help me." When the dad came out, obviously the dad, and what she was shouting, she was 3 years old, was money, money, money. She
Wow.
wanted money so she could buy sweets, she could buy candy. Now, look, if you've got a 3-year-old who's already programmed at that level, that's why it's so difficult for a 33-year-old or a 40 or 50 or 60 to break this.
Mm.
So we've got to get in there and re-educate the educators.
Yeah.
So this is why it's a mammoth challenge, and it must be an energy change and a physical change, and the two must work together.
Sure.
And it's such a fantastic opportunity.
This could take 10 years, couldn't it, Simon?
It depends on the resources. I don't just mean money. I mean, if Charlie and I walked into a room and the person in charge said, "You've got a free hand," it wouldn't take us 10 years. But if the person says, "Well, you can't do this and you can't, and you've got to tread carefully here," bureaucracy and red tape, yes, Nick, 10 years.
Right, I get it. So it's
Someone
all up
gives
to us,
Charlie and
really.
me a free hand, we'll do it in weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. If we
Oh.
didn't have to worry about people's feelings, it would be very, very easy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But guys, it's been a wonderful pleasure, Simon and Charlie, for me to host this video interview, and you guys have great intellectual information, which is fantastic. It's very enlightening to me
Not
and
just
the audience.
intellectual, it's spiritual.
And spiritual, or intellectually, spiritually.
Okay.
Well, listen, it was lovely, and maybe we should do this sometime again soon. And God bless. Thank you very much.
Nick, I'm obviously not going to jump in too much. I mean, Charlie's got to say,
No,
but I think it's really important that I think we should do this again, and more than once, because humanity needs support, it needs guidance, and we're going to go through some changes. And maybe if you can keep your channel up, Nick, and keep it running, and Charlie and keep his up, I think what will happen is people who have always gone to CNN or the BBC will start coming, and if we can be that and position in a vacuum. I don't want a vacuum because bad guys will get in there. So we can go in there and take the moral high ground, because not because Charlie and I have got good intel, but because Charlie and I are brothers in the spiritual sense of the word. And the thing about Charlie and I, Nick, and I, you know, God bless you, I don't know you well enough, Nick, but Charlie and I are uncorruptible, which means that we will not be sabotaged. And so the information that's coming out is from the heart, it's truthful stuff, but there's no agenda to this.
Absolutely.
And I think that if Charlie's up for it, we could do several of them.
I'm very much up for it because we're on the same page and we're needed right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thoroughly enjoy it because it just, we get such clarity together. And fortunately, we're very, very blessed with the fact that we have a serious amount of followers that we can get the message out to. And
Charlie, you've got loads more followers than I have, my friend. I'm just a small fry, really.
Look, at the end of the day, it's all about coming together.
Yes.
The numbers, they're wonderful, but it's all about getting the truth out.
Exactly.
And the more people that we can get the truth out to, the better.
Sure. That's got to be it.
Nicholas,
thank you so much for hosting it. And thank you for, you know, there are some people that when they run these sort of things, they just want to keep talking. And the questions you asked, I thought personally were really good. They allowed Charlie and I to respond. And because both Charlie and I don't have a great deal of ego, we're not trying to outdo each other. So it's nice and calm. This is a really relaxed, it's what it's meant to be. So God bless to you, Nicholas, for making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you. Bye-bye.